It'd be good to start with a little bit of background on the company, N2S, sort of when, why formed, and the progress to date.
Yeah, so it started by my father, Jack, while I was running around a sports field rugby pitch. And when he started it, 2001, I was sort of midway through my professional career. So it was a fourth iteration due to family circumstances and him moving to a particular area in Suffolk. So East Anglia, and yeah, he started it up literally a man, a van, a trailer, and you know, he's that classic entrepreneur from nothing, starting up and grafting. And the biggest, when I retired in 2010, the biggest thing that sort of Dad passed to me was, from a business point of view, this is going to be your best lesson ever. Having been really interested in and being involved in startups while I was still playing, I had the luxury of being quite time rich at certain periods of my life, being a professional sportsman. And I had an active brain and ambition to be in business. And the first thing he said was, this is going to be a great lesson for you. You know, real grassroots SME. And yeah, I'm delighted to say I feel like all those boxes have been ticked through the just over 10 years now I've been involved with the business. So I was pretty blessed. And one of the biggest things, I think, coming from sport to business, is trust. I feel is number one. And I started some businesses where trust wasn't there, and joining with my father Jack and the team at N2S, trust was absolutely number one, gold stamped. And yeah, we've kind of built from that sort of foundation. So exciting times ahead with new investment and a new innovation that you know, Jack has always wanted to change the game in the world of recycling, refining, and extraction, remediation. There's still a good marketing narrative to be honed here, because under the body, this kind of new world of net zero, how do we do this to protect our environment, gain, you know, better governance and better social value? And we're trying to absolutely smash through the barriers currently that exist in the marketplace.
Okay, and at some stage, I don't know when, but the IT asset disposal has become the sort of accepted term for what, you know, as you say, recycling refurbishment. So can you sort of talk us through, I guess, the industry becoming, from when, as you say, your dad Jack started with a sort of van and, you know, drove around, to what it is now, much bigger. I wouldn't, well, I'd say more professional. I'm sure he was professional, but, you know, on a bigger footing. And also the activities. I mean, some people assume it's all about recycling laptops. I guess that's part of it, but I assume there are parts of computers or types of computers that you can't recycle, or IT kit, and therefore you do have to dispose of them. And are you able to, yeah, rescue components? So yeah, just some sort of flavour of from that journey to where we are now, and then, you know, what it is that's involved in the process.
Yeah, that's fine. It was a really great question, because that was the first question I asked of the business and myself. You know, from a sort of marketing point of view, where the hell do we sit? You know, what is the positioning? What's the elevator pitch? And to be honest, I spent 10 years doing different elevator pitches to different companies and different sort of industry verticals. So it's a real challenge. And that's why we're trying to create a net zero green new narrative. Where it's come from is we were heavily focused, and technology is a great space to be in because it changes so quickly. And when we started, it was telecoms. That's what we were, telecommunications. And when you think of BT, you think now not only, you know, it got shortened from British Telecom to BT, and they are a media company as well as providing you, and they want to get away from being a broadband provider. You know, so it's this whole world of technology now and how it drives our communication and our content. So that's one of the big challenges that we had, was that we went from being niche, small and specialist in telecommunications now into the broad range of technology, data center, end user devices, whether you're sort of a partial consumer, i.e. you're at home now with lots of tech, you have an office that you haven't been to for 18 months, 2 years, that's full of tech, and covering, various things like printing. Is printing dead? Certainly not dead, but it's definitely diminishing. Data center networks, that whole world of communicating across the globe. All these things, cyber, all these things are really, really important, and the technology vendors have to design equipment to meet the necessary requirements of the future. IoT, for instance, lots of very, very quick information flows to garner what the next solution looks like. So it's just, to me, it's fascinating, and they all require a chip or a PCB. Now, there is a tipping point moving forward, and this is the bit that we're trying to discuss with the major manufacturers, the vendors, is that you've already got a problem. So lead times for our hardware is been drastically extended. So the customers are sort of screaming, and we're running out of the world's metals and rare earth metals. We're running out of this stuff to manufacture, yet we are growing in population and demand for the best technology. So how are we creating a new green version? And circular economy is a word that has been pushed, heavily weighted from my selfish reason, heavily weighted in the design aspect. But where are we getting these metals and rare earth metals? Where are we getting them from? We're still digging the earth. So environmentally, it's not a great story. So we need to be from a linear economy that has previously served us for the past 5 decades. We do need a circular economy. So we do need to build and design with recycled material in mind. It's still brand new, but there has to be a clean but also joined up process. And at the moment, it's very fragmented. And we're just an absolute drop in the ocean in terms of our part to this, but also the conversations that are driving forward. So by attending COP26, we feel we're going to be driving an agenda that really isn't mainstream information. I spoke to a particular vendor who talked about using ocean plastic in their design and manufacture of some of their devices. That's fantastic. But it almost feels like we're trying to solve somebody else's problem in technology, i.e. it's a plastic bottle and we're going to use it in technology. To me, isn't the purest of circular economies. We do need to match up the technology to technology in the different lives. And that to me is really exciting, but somebody as well needs to digitize this circular economy. So that's the opportunity that exists for some of the major players around, the various technologies in the future. But there needs to be a common ground globally for this. So it's really exciting. So it's great to be able to take technology, refurbish it and reuse it. That is a great embodied carbon avoidance, and that for PLCs and governments, that's a real tick in the box. We do that today. That isn't, you've got a mobile phone, you trade it in, it gets reused wherever in the world. That's not a new narrative. The reporting on that, I don't think especially very good. So there's an opportunity there, but it's the recycling and what happens. And today we export, end of story. And because of Brexit, UK and the opportunities in green now in the world, it's a great opportunity to stop exporting and deal with that challenge and problem in the UK. And it's not just about landfill, digging up landfill, it's about the future of technology and how we are manufacturing.
And you reference obviously the big IT hardware manufacturers. Yeah. I mean, how do they view the activities, I mean, I'm sure they're aware of their, environmental responsibilities, but they also are interested in selling, tin, so they want to sell new servers. So do they have a bit of a conflict of interests, or how do they engage with companies like yourself? What do they see you as a threat, or a bit of a side? How do they view you, I guess?
Yeah, it's certainly an area that's probably, I feel like they see it as the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So there's plenty of parts to fix in the meantime. So we've been pushed out, if you like, but actually, while we're looking at design, the experts involved in the design discussions really need to think about where they're getting the material from, and that's the big one for me. And those conversations are about to start. So we're on the precipice of formulating a high-level plan for the major, consumer and business vendors out there, especially in volume, because volumes are going to go up. We're struggling to find the equipment. And as I said, the tipping point in terms of metals, rare earth metals, precious metals, the tipping point is not that far away. When we consider the government agreed to net zero 2050, it's the tipping point in this is not that far away. I think it's outside of the next decade, but it's not far away, and there are political challenges and opportunities within this. So we're very focused and are keen for the UK government to be the first that refines in a green way, recycles, however we grab that new narrative, and puts it back into manufacturing, so creating a circular economy. And I don't know whether it's going to be technology to technology, but I certainly know that net zero is pushing renewable energy, and we do not have enough of the material to manufacture the equipment that drives renewable power. And that is a major, major challenge and great opportunity in the green financing world and the green world.
And in terms of your customer base, I'm just wondering how they respond to this, because again, environmentally, I'm sure they all have their strategies in place. But is there any sort of pushback against the idea that recycled IT equipment is somehow inferior to buying something brand new? What are the attitudes, and have they changed over time? Or?
I think the attitudes, another great question, the attitudes have dramatically changed. That because of COVID-19, refurbished was a necessity because of the lack of product in the market, and there was this real rush and panic at the start of the pandemic. So I think that the attitude has massively changed, but it's nothing new. Actually, some clients do use refurbished. I think most consumers, employees would want a new device. I think my generation of children are really more than happy with refurbished, actually. But technology is changing. We really haven't got to the next level within 5G, for instance, and most of those mobile phones will not be able to operate on a 5G network. So there's always a big transition point driven by the telcos. And so I think tick box, great. I think that will change. And I think one of the challenges is that how robust that refurbished equipment is. Sometimes in certain technologies, it's good and it's really robust and it lasts a really, really good long time. So I think the opportunity for, say, in networking for a device, and the models around the vendors now are changing as a service, so the customer doesn't actually own it. So those models are helping the circular economy, fantastic. But you can push out the device for a lot longer. Whereas the stuff that we use every day, and we're bashing the keyboard and all of that stuff, I think robustness of some of the refurbished is not good enough for some clients. So what we're trying to do is bridge that gap and the closeness of reporting on the embodied carbon element to the device, so that you've got the reusability is a good avoidance of this embodied carbon. The recycling and refining bit drops off a cliff, and what we're trying to do is bridge that gap, so that it doesn't matter what decision you make, we're pretty close in here, and we're not, number one, destroying our environment, harming our population, and also that you're proving that you're kind of net zero, right? That's the key to it, that you're not, furthermore damaging the planet. So that's the new world. But the point I guess overarching is nobody's really proved it. That that's kind of the data isn't, because of the non-digitization of this circular economy. The data can be construed and skewed, and that's one of the real challenges. All I know is 100% we are damaging our environment the way we do it today, and that's why we're an SME and we're just keen to educate and show what we're trying to do for the future, and hopefully it will become mainstream.
And I mean, I'm guessing what you're doing is having success, because I think you've announced recently you've opened 3 more offices, and I think as well I've read that you've got plans to open some more, and also some quite significant hiring of staff. So can you just outline that sort of expansion program?
Yeah, so it started out, and I'm really proud that Jack, he served the recycling and refining world for 50 plus years, was a board member for 20 plus years with the British Metals Recycling Association, the BMRA, and they mentioned to us, that there's a meeting the minimum requirements in recycling and waste industries. There's not many big innovators, and that's because sometimes the size of these companies, and when you're small and agile, you can be innovative. So I'm really proud of that start, and we were a family business, and now we have shareholders and fantastic investment to grow. And as you say, that is growth with winning new business and winning hearts and minds of customers, because I think that's, we're pushing on the environmental and social and this ESG governance, this ESG button, we're pushing on it, and we're pushing on an open door. And that's where I think that we're gaining real traction. It's tough for some of the big companies to move quickly and change, but we need more bodies, we need more resource, we need more warehousing, we need more vehicles, we need, to be able to cope with the demand, because there's a lot of equipment that's just sat in situ doing nothing. So we are seeing a massive increase. And to be fair, I'm not sure who will be our customers in the end. It will certainly be the end users, but what I mean by that is we are a channel business, so we work with resellers and distributors. And will we be licensed and contracted to vendors? Hopefully yes, because we are truly trying to change the game for them to clearly sell sustainable technology, that you can prove that your device, this device here, is 100% from recycled material. The iPhone 13 apparently now does have recycled gold in it. That's one very, very important part. But it could be proved that gold had been dug illegally, couldn't it, really? And it's not a criticism, it's just the way it has evolved and the way it can work. We truly don't know, but it could have. And so this whole digitization of the circular economy is going to be fascinating. And having a register globally that it's public, and that your phone, your device that you're sat on is proved to be 100% from recycled material is going to be the goal. And whether it can be done, I don't know. We're hiring scientists to prove this. So it's really exciting. It's a great and that's what the channel wants. The distributors, the resellers, they want to sell their customers sustainable technology and reducing power, and the metals and the materials they are from recycled, from the recycled world. That's what we want. So we need to really drive the conversations forward, and that's what we are as a company doing. We're helping some of the channel consult on net zero, for instance. And I never thought that we would be doing that 2 years ago, but we are now, and that is helping us to bond tighter with our channel partners to be able to deliver this green message to their customer base, because most of the top 100 resellers in the UK have customers that demand it, and that's what we are keen to deliver. And when we talk ESG, the evidence that I've seen from the experts is most of the FTSEs and the ESG, 80% of that is in the environmental part. The S and the G are very, very important, but the huge weight is in the environmental part, and that's something that we are trying to uncover now and share with people and show that we are the greenest refining company, bio-mining, bio-refining company. And that's just a great conversation to have with these customers, because they just don't have it.
And you've alluded to a lot of things going on in the IT space, but it'd be nice to know your thoughts perhaps on how well you think the IT industry has addressed its sort of environmental responsibilities up to around the current time, and I guess as importantly, if not more, what more do you think? I mean, it seems to me that every industry is going to have to make some massive step change at some stage. You can tinker around the edges, but at some point you've got to say what we've been doing is, I think you mentioned, for the last 5 decades is just no longer acceptable. We've got to re-engineer everything we thought we knew. Do you think that's, as I say, that's required still by them, and what's been achieved to date?
I think twofold for me is that I'd say 25%, the big players have always been doing it, right? They if you think about one of our customers, which is BT themselves, they have a big team and real experts, and they deliver on what they're saying, and they are making some really, really bold statements and targets. Fantastic. So they've always been at the forefront and always been doing it. So I think there's that element that 25% have always been delivering. I think there's still room for improvement within the big telcos and the big companies, and they're constantly innovating and driving internally, and it does take time for them. I think some of them have woken up. So another sort of 25% have woken up, and they've driven the agenda internally, and again, pushing on internally with their employee base, pushing on an open door, because we all want to work for a company that has a strong ESG and a strong message to their customers. And they want to feel empowered, and they want to feel green in their company rather than emitting carbon emissions. So I think there's overall 50%, and there's 50% that just haven't even thought about it or invested in it at all. So I think there's a real pace suddenly this decade. A few still need to wake up, and they're just not seeing it. And there are a few doing the investment rounds. How much do we need? How resource as well? What fascinates me, I was with a recruitment company yesterday, and what fascinates me is the new jobs that are on the market that, literally the description hasn't been written, because it's a new world, right? That's super exciting. So to be a future employee that can learn quickly and learn well, and in a great and expanding space, I think delivers unbelievable opportunity in the recruitment market. So I think it's investment, but it's also getting people. We still need people, which is great for the jobs market. We need people to drive the agenda, and there needs to be a depth, because there's so much to do within it. It's so broad, and then it's so personal as well to companies. So wonderful opportunities. I just see it galore opening up.
And you alluded to COP26. We can't avoid that. It's on the horizon. Are you, when it comes to what they may decide upon, achieve, are you an optimist or a pessimist? I mean, I think I saw on the news this morning the Chinese president or whatever is not going to attend in person, apparently for various COVID reasons. But do you fear that it'll end up being a missed opportunity, or say, are you optimistic that they will grasp the uncomfortable truths and there will be a new sort of level of focus on all things sustainable?
I'm ever the optimist, always optimistic. Personally, and with my business, it's a huge opportunity for us to support UK Gov in the SME drive. We're driving net zero 2030. We've committed to that. So it's a great opportunity for us to be at COP26. I do feel optimistic around it. There's going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of exhibiting and conferences and leaders. It'll be interesting to see who jumps in and kind of maybe disrupting it because of the passion around this. So I think I'm optimistic about it. What I do know is the reality that we said after 2015, the Paris Climate Agreement, with all the world's power, that we were going to, in the sort of underdeveloped, those nations that really need our support, we were going to all raise 100 billion and put in for this race to net zero. And since that time, the investment's been 10 billion. So I know that we're way behind still. It doesn't scare us, I don't think, but I think there needs to be, COP26 needs to be another accelerating moment. And why not? We want to leave a legacy, don't we? We want to leave our planet in a better state than we found it. And I just think that if the world does look at it and from a social point of view, talk about it, pass information, learn about it, we will leave this planet in a better place for sure. So COP26, just incredible opportunity. I am optimistic, but we'll soon see. It will certainly drive the discussion, which is really, really needed. It's great that Sky News has its own climate show now, for instance, and if more were like that, then the information flow would be so much better.
And just in terms of the sort of the actions, how much do you think the industry, and I guess industries in general, will do it themselves, and how much, I mean, for example, as consumers, we're all being told that by, I think it's 2030, that's the end of selling petrol and diesel, so we're all going to have electric vehicles, like it or not. Do you think there's going to be potentially similar legislation so that by 2030 or 2035 your server will have to be 100% made out of recycled components, or legislation like that? Or do you think the industry has the sort of will to solve these problems itself without the stick, as it were?
No, I really do think that the stick is needed. That's how we have been able to make strides forward in the past, and I don't see it being any different. I think the carbon tax is unavoidable. I really do. There are companies, the big emitters, that are already taxed, and I definitely see an opportunity for governments to reclaim financial opportunity there with what we've just been through. So I think the carbon tax is inevitable. How much it will be is subject to debate, but I think it's going to be material. I know a big retailer in the UK, it's a global retailer, was looking at potentially £7 million worth of tax per year in carbon from all of their buildings. And I think the other thing I'm optimistic about is the fact of learning about scope 1 and 2 emissions, and how we do have to report on that now. An SME like us doesn't have to at the moment, but we will do, and we are. The opportunity is in the scope 3. So that's what I love about the conversations, we're all in it together, because your scope 1 and 2 is my scope 3, and that's really an opportunity for everyone to collaborate. The whole of supply chains now, if you're not having a plan, and B, you're not on that journey to reduce your carbon emissions, then I don't think you're going to be a supplier to that customer anymore. So I think there's real opportunity there, and that will drive a lot of conversation, especially as if you can position yourselves within scope 3. There's 15 categories. If you position your business within that, then you've got a real opportunity and real chance.
Yeah, I was going to ask about supply chains. I mean, do you think it's inevitable? Clearly, we're in the UK experiencing significant disruption for various reasons, but do you think long term it's inevitable that supply chains are going to shrink again, because it's just not sustainable for, say, the UK to rely on, you know, lots of parts manufactured in the Far East, or, you know, even, I know we're celebrating a new trade deal with Australia, but bringing beef over from Australia can't make sense if we can grow it, you know, here. Do you think that will be a sort of seismic change at some stage, with supply chains becoming much more local again?
I do, yeah. It's huge. But as I said about the jobs market, is for people to be expert and report on it, to prove how you're reducing your carbon emissions by making a decision within supply chain or procurement. Procurement's been led on money for so long, and that is another thing that has to change. You hear of conversations in the coffee house or at the bar, which is if we were to charge you £1 more, but we're more sustainable for each transaction or each device we're selling you, would you do it to be more sustainable? And I reckon it's 50-50 of them will still be money. No chance. I'm not going to be greener, and you're going to charge me more. But others are, you're pushing on an open door again. Yes, of course, charge me more to be greener. So I think there's a real challenge in leadership and those decisions at a leadership level. And anyone that is an employee of a big company, I would be knocking on the door and saying to that board, what are we doing? What is the plan? How are we reducing our carbon emissions? And you hear of some of the big tech companies, and they're now going to be remunerated for being greener. And that's the way of the world. Unfortunately, I laugh at it, but it's the way of the world. Okay, we'll be greener now because I'm going to be paid more.
So maybe, as we finish in terms of the IT asset disposal, so it's a growing market, but I suspect there are still a lot of businesses that haven't engaged with it. Are there any sort of 1 or 2 bits of advice you'd give to people as they're looking at that sort of opportunity for their business, how to sort of start that journey? Yeah,
it's really interesting because it's such a minefield that people get scared and will put it off and know that we've got to discuss it. We know we've got to discuss it. We've got other fires to fight in business, right? That's just the reality of the world. But I think you've got to start somewhere, and to get a baseline, I think it's absolutely critical. You get a baseline in your business. You don't have to report on that unless you are, a big business, but getting a baseline. And then my feeling is scope 3 emissions will 2 or 3 years away you will be assessed. Your supply chains certain businesses are already assessed. So why not assess your entire supply chain as well and have procurement around it? So I think first and foremost, get a baseline as quickly as possible to find out where you are. Next one is, bring in experts, but bring in new responsibility within the business to strategize of how you're going to reduce it. So actually have a plan. A lot of companies are sort of saying, yeah, we'll be net zero by 2050, and there's not much else. The SBTI, people signing up to the SBTI, which is a science-based target initiative, those companies are really taking it seriously, and there are some on there that still haven't actually sorted out their goal and what they're actually doing, but at least they've got 2 years once you sign up to the SBTI. I believe you have 2 years to prove it, and so that's a start. So if you're working for a big company, look and see if you're supporting the SBTI, which is voluntary, by the way. But again, it's whether voluntary becomes mandatory. That's for the government to push forward on, and hopefully in COP26 we'll see some more commitments. I've got a feeling carbon tax will be a sort of new discussion suddenly, and we'll see. But get a baseline, get the relevant responsibilities, and get some experts in to support you. And it's a great journey to be on. It's great to be able to communicate with your customers and your supply chain what you're doing and how you're doing it. It's follow those leaders and not laggards. Follow those, because it's inspiring.
Okay, well, it's been lovely to chat to you. We covered a fair amount of ground and given us some great insights. So Andrew, thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.